No, Amarachi, I'm done with you. I should have gotten rid of you a long time ago. She stepped away and pointed towards the front door. Get up and get out of my house. Amarachi remained on her knees, sobbing and clutching her hands together in a plea. Mother, please, I'll do anything. I'll work harder. I will never speak a word. Just let me stay. I want to see my daddy. Once upon a time in Lagos, Nigeria, there lived a little girl named Amarachi. She lived with her father, Timothy, in a beautiful bungalow nestled in a quite nice estate on the outskirts of the city. The bungalow had white walls, a red roof, and a small flower garden in front. It was a warm and loving home, filled with laughter and affection. Amarachi's mother had decorated the living room with family photographs and bright curtains that danced gently whenever the breeze blew in from the open windows. There was a sense of peace and safety in that home. However, things took a sad turn when Amarachi was just 8 years old. Her mother fell gravely ill and passed away, leaving Amarachi and her father heartbroken. The laughter in the house faded, and the once cheerful Mr. Timothy became quiet and sorrowful. Amarachi missed her mother terribly. Her mother's comforting hugs, her gentle voice singing lullabies at bedtime, and the sweet aroma of her cooking filling the house. The little girl often cried herself to sleep on her soft bed, clutching a small framed photo of her mother. Mr. Timothy tried his best to comfort his daughter, but he was grieving too, and the house felt emptier than before. As the months passed, Mr. Timothy realized that Amarachi needed a motherly figure in her life. He also longed for companionship and someone to help care for his daughter. After careful thought, he decided to remarry. One sunny afternoon, he sat Amarachi down in the living room. He sat on the sofa near the window where sunlight streamed in. Holding her little hands in his, he said gently, "My dear, I have something to tell you. I met a kind woman named Deborah. She's very nice and I think she could be a good mother to you. How would you feel if I invited her to come live with us?" Amarachi looked up at her father with wide, curious eyes. She remembered her own mother with love, but she also trusted her father's judgment. She wanted him to be happy, and deep down she missed having a mother's love. "Will she be kind to me, Daddy?" Amarachi asked softly. "Yes, my dear," Mr. Timothy assured, squeezing her hand. "Deborah is very kind. She has even bought some gifts for you. I believe she will take good care of you when I'm at work, and I'll still always be here for you." Not long after that conversation, Mr. Timothy brought Deborah to the house to introduce her to Amarachi. Deborah was a tall, elegant woman with a friendly smile and bright eyes. She dressed smartly and carried herself with confidence. On the day they met, Deborah wore a vibrant blue dress and brought a basket of gifts for Amarachi. She knelt down to Amarachi's level and said, "Hello, Amarachi. I've heard so much about you. I brought you some toys and sweets. I hope we can be good friends." Amarachi shyly accepted the gift, a cute teddy bear, some candy, and a storybook. "Thank you, Ma," she said politely. In Nigeria, it's respectful for children to call an older woman Ma. Deborah gently patted her head. "You are welcome, my dear. I know I can never replace your mommy, but I will try my best to be here for you, okay?" Her tone was caring, and Amarachi felt a small spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this woman could bring some warmth back into their home. Over the next few weeks, Deborah frequently visited their home. Each time, she was sweet and considerate towards Amarachi. She helped Amarachi comb her hair into neat braids. In the morning before going to school, she cooked Amarachi's favorite meal and even sat with her to read the new storybook she had given. Mr. Timothy watched these interactions with relief and happiness in his heart. It seemed like Deborah truly cared for Amarachi, and that made him feel that marrying her was the right decision. In a small ceremony at a local church, Mr. Timothy and Deborah got married. Amarachi wore a pretty pink dress and was the little bride, holding the wedding rings on a pillow. She still felt a bit uncertain. No one could replace her real mother, but Deborah's warm smiles reassured her. After the wedding, Deborah moved into the bungalow as Amarachi's new stepmother. At first, life seemed to return to something almost normal. The house had laughter again. Deborah would tell funny stories at dinner that made Amarachi giggle, and she tucked Amarachi into bed at night with a kind goodnight kiss on the forehead. Amarachi began to think that perhaps she could love Deborah like a mother one day. She missed her own mom every day, but having Deborah around made the pain a little less sharp. Mr. Timothy was glad to see his daughter smiling again. He too felt happier with Deborah by his side, helping to mend their once broken hearts. For a short time after the wedding, things went well, but soon, Mr. Timothy and Deborah announced some big news. Deborah was expecting a baby. Mr. Timothy was overjoyed at the thought of a new child, and Amarachi was genuinely excited that she would have a younger sibling to play with. They prepared a small room as a nursery, painting the walls a salt blue and placing a crib by the window. Amarachi helped fold tiny baby clothes and placed them neatly in a drawer, dreaming of how she would help take care of her little brother or sister. However, as Deborah's belly grew, her patience with Amarachi began to shrink. At first, it was little things. Deborah would ask Amarachi to fetch her slippers or pick up something she dropped, saying, "My back hurts, dear. Could you help me?" Amarachi didn't mind helping. She was a kind girl and understood that her stepmother was tired because of the pregnancy. But as months passed, Deborah started to change in other ways. One evening, when Mr. Timothy was working late at the office, Amarachi accidentally spilled a glass of milk on the kitchen floor while making a cup of tea for herself. Deborah, who had been resting on the couch, heard the clatter and rushed in. Her face was twisted in irritation. "What's wrong with you, Amarachi?" Deborah shouted angrily. Amarachi trembled. She had never heard Deborah raise her voice like that before. I'm so sorry, ma." Amarachi stuttered, quickly kneeling down to wipe the milk with a rag. Deborah folded her arms and scolded. "Sorry for yourself, you clumsy child. Do you know how hard I work to keep this house clean? And here you are messing it up like a little piglet." Her words were harsh and stung Amarachi's heart. Amarachi's eyes welled up with tears. Deborah had never spoken to her so cruelly. After mopping up the spill, Amarachi looked up and said quietly, "I didn't mean to. I promise I'll be more careful." Deborah rolled her eyes. "You better be. Pregnant or not, I won't tolerate laziness or mess in my house. Do you hear me?" She snapped. Yes, ma," Amarachi replied, her voice barely above a whisper. That night, when Mr. Timothy returned home, Deborah's demeanor changed instantly. She greeted her husband with a warm smile and a hug, acting as if nothing was wrong. Amarachi was surprised to see how quickly her stepmother could switch from angry to sweet. Deborah even mentioned the spilled milk incident to her husband, but she twisted the story. "Our little Amarachi had a small accident with a glass of milk today," Deborah said in a light-hearted tone as they sat at dinner. "But don't worry, darling. I cleaned it up. She's just a child after all. I told her it was okay." Amarachi looked at Deborah in confusion. Okay? That was not how it happened at all. But she kept quiet, nervously pushing her rice around on her plate. Mr. Timothy smiled at his wife's understanding attitude. He reached over to pat Amarachi's shoulder gently. "Be more careful next time, okay, princess?" he said kindly. Amarachi nodded, forcing a small smile. Inside, she felt uneasy. She wondered why Deborah had lied about not being angry. He didn't stop at that one incident. Over the next few weeks, Whenever Mr. Timothy was away at work, Deborah's temper fled at the smallest mistakes Amarachi made. If Amarachi forgot to sweep a corner of the living room, Deborah would snap. Are you as blind as a bat? Look at the dirt you left. You better sweep properly unless you want to live in a dustbin. If Amarachi took a little too long to fetch something, Deborah would huff. My goodness, you're slower than a Lagos traffic jam. You're out to grow old waiting for you. Sometimes, Deborah's insults were so exaggerated that one might find them almost comical if they weren't being hurled at a child. Once, when Amarachi dozed off while folding laundry, because Deborah had made her do house chores all day, Deborah clapped her hands loudly in front of Amarachi's face. Wake up, Madam Sleepyhead. You act like you are the one carrying a baby. If laziness was a subject in school, you would be the professor, Amarachi. She barked. Amarachi woke up with a fright, her heart pounding, and quickly resumed folding clothes with shaky hands. Yet, whenever Mr. Timothy was around or came home, Deborah was all smiles and kindness again. She would suddenly praise Amarachi in front of him, saying things like, Amarachi helped me so much today. I don't know what I would have done without her. While giving Amarachi a warning glance when he wasn't looking, as if daring her to contradict the story. Out of fear and confusion, Amarachi would simply nod and play along, pretending everything was fine. Mr. Timothy noticed that Amarachi had grown quieter and more timid, but he attributed it to her adjusting to having a new mother and a baby on the way. He had no idea what was happening when he was out to work. And Deborah made sure to keep it that way. Amarachi felt she couldn't tell her father the truth. She worried he might not believe her or that it would cause a fight. Besides, Deborah was pregnant and her father was so happy about the baby. Amarachi didn't want to cause any trouble or stress. In due time, Deborah gave birth to a healthy baby boy whom they named Fred. Mr. Timothy was beside himself with joy. I have a son, he announced proudly to friends and neighbors. Amarachi was happy too. At least on the surface, she had a baby brother. She hoped that once the baby arrived, maybe her stepmother's mood would improve and things would get better. For a little while after Fred was born, Deborah was preoccupied with the newborn. The house was filled with the sounds of a baby crying and cooing. Mr. Timothy took some time off work to help out at home and bond with little Fred. During those days, Deborah was tired from waking up at night to feed the baby, but she still maintained her pleasant facade when Mr. Timothy was around. She would smile and hand baby Fred to Amarachi, saying, Here, hold your brother for a moment, but be very careful, okay? Amarachi would gently rock the baby in her arms, marveling at how tiny he was. She genuinely loved her brother and often made silly faces to make him giggle. However, not long after the baby was born, Mr. Timothy had to return to work, and this time, his job required him to travel to another state. He got a promotion managing a branch of his company in a different state, which meant he would spend weeks or even months away, only coming back to Lagos occasionally to visit his family. It was a difficult decision for him to accept the promotion, but the raise in salary would help provide a better life for his wife and children. He sat down with Deborah and Amarachi to discuss it. This is a great opportunity, he explained one evening. I can provide for all of you much better, but it means I'll be away a lot. Deborah, can you manage the things here while I'm gone? Of course, darling, Deborah said with a reassuring smile. I'll take care of the house, Amarachi and baby Fred. Don't worry about a thing. We will be just fine and we'll miss you. She looked at Amarachi, prompting her to respond. Amarachi mustered a small smile and nodded. Yes, Daddy, we'll miss you, but I'll be okay here with Mom. It was the first time she had called Deborah Mom, and upon hearing it, Deborah reached over and hugged her lightly. To an outsider, it looked like a tender moment, but Amarachi felt Deborah's arm around her shoulders tighten just a bit too much. a silent reminder of who was in control when daddy was away. The day Mr. Timothy left for his new post was emotional. He kissed baby Fred and hugged Amarachi tightly. Be a good girl, Amarachi. Help your stepmother and take care of your little brother, okay? I will call every day if I can. Amarachi clung to her father, feeling tears in her eyes. She already felt lonely at the thought of him being so far away. Are you, Daddy? Please come home soon, okay? She whispered. Mr. Timothy even had tears glistening in his eyes as he hugged Deborah and said goodbye. With Mr. Timothy gone, life took a dark turn for Amarachi. Deborah no longer felt the need to pretend to be kind. The very same day Mr. Timothy left, Amarachi felt the change. In the morning, Deborah handed baby Fred to Amarachi and said curtly, Feed him this porridge. I'm going back to sleep. I was up all night with him. Amarachi nodded and carefully began to feed her baby brother with a small spoon. The baby was hungry and ate eagerly, getting porridge all over his tiny chin. Amarachi couldn't help but smile at Fred's messy eating. After feeding Fred and gently rocking him to sleep, Amarachi realized she needed to get ready for school. Normally, at that time, she would be putting on her uniform and heading out to catch the school bus inside the estate. She hesitated and gently placed the sleeping baby in his crib. Mom, Amarachi said softly, I have to get ready for school now. Deborah, who was lounging on the couch in her robe, gave Amarachi a cold stare. School? She repeated, raising an eyebrow. Who will take care of Fred if you are gallivanting off to school? Do you think I have the energy to run after a baby all day by myself? Amarachi fidgeted with her hands. But Daddy said I should not miss school and my teacher will respect me. Deborah cut her off sharply. Enough. From now on, you will be homeschooled, she declared with a wave of her hand, as if it was a trivial matter. I can teach you what you need to know. Honestly, Amarachi, school is a luxury you cannot afford to waste on someone like you right now. You have more important priorities, like Fred. Tears formed in Amarachi's eyes. She loved school. She loved reading and playing with her friends. The thought of not going to school anymore horrified her. Please, Ma, I want to go to school. My friends. Deborah's expression turned venomous. Your friends? Do you think those friends will feed you? Will they take care of you? Stop being selfish. This family has changed. We have a new baby to think about. We can't afford any distractions. Her voice was icy and final. Amarachi realized it was hopeless to argue. Deborah had made up her mind. So that day, instead of putting on her navy blue school uniform and heading to class, she stayed home in a simple dress and looked after baby Fred while Deborah slept in late. And that was the upshot of Amarachi's schooling. It only got worse. Deborah began to assign Amarachi an endless list of chores each day. Clean the kitchen, scrub the bathrooms, do the laundry, cook dinner, she would order. Amarachi did her best to keep up, but the house was large and the tasks were many, especially for a 10-year-old. If anything was not done perfectly, Deborah would unleash a torrent of insults. This soup is too salty. Are you trying to poison us? Or, I told you to iron my clothes. Why are there still wrinkles? Are you as useless as a broken iron? Amarachi often felt like a servant in her own home. She ate only whatever leftovers Deborah allowed her to have, usually scraps from dinner. Sometimes, Deborah deliberately skipped feeding Amarachi at all. Oh, they haven't eaten. Well, if you had finished your work on time, you would have. It's your own fault you are hungry, she would say with a cruel smile. Then, she would pointedly toss away the remaining food or give it all to little Fred, who was a toddler by now and eating solid food rather than let Amarachi have a proper meal. At night, Amarachi's situation was no better. Initially, Amarachi had her own room, a small but cozy space with a single bed and a little desk. but Deborah decided that the baby needed that room for himself. She turned it into Fred's bedroom, filled with toys and baby things. Amarachi was ordered to move out. "Where will I sleep, ma?" Amarachi asked fearfully. Deborah pointed to the living room floor. "There, you can sleep on a mat on the floor, or on the bed tiles. For all I care, you are young, your bones can handle it," she said dismissively. So Amarachi gathered a thin mat and an old pillow and made a little bed for herself on the living room floor each night. It was terribly uncomfortable. The tiles were cold and hard, and some nights mosquitoes would sneak in and buzz around her. She often shivered in the darkness, quietly sobbing and wishing her father would return soon. When her father did call on the phone, Deborah always answered and rarely let Amarachi speak to him freely. Deborah might put the call on speaker and hover nearby, so Amarachi couldn't dare mention her suffering. "Daddy, I'm fine." "Yes," she would say nervously, her eyes on Deborah, who stood tapping her foot as a warning. That Timothy usually was in a rush or noisy environment and often just said, "All right dear, be good. I'll visit home soon, okay?" before hanging up. It broke Amarachi's heart that her father didn't know what was going on, but Deborah had trapped her in a web of silence and fear. Whenever Mr. Timothy managed to visit home in Lagos, Deborah put on an elaborate show. She would prepare Amarachi, scrubbing the girl clean, giving her decent clothes to wear, often hand-me-downs of her own or old clothes from neighbors, since she never bought Amarachi new clothes anymore, and instructing her to behave perfectly. If Amarachi had lost weight from being underfed, Deborah would blame it on a stubborn bout of malaria that made her lose appetite, or some other lie, then quickly turned the subject. She made sure Fred looked well cared for and played the role of a doting mother to both him and Amarachi in front of Mr. Timothy. "Amarachi, come sit with me," Deborah would say sweetly when Mr. Timothy was watching. "Have you read the new book Daddy bought for you? Tell me about it." She would smile and act moodily. Even as Amarachi felt uncomfortable under her fake affection, Amarachi would steal glances at her father, wanting desperately to tell him everything. But each time she met Deborah's eyes, she saw a clear warning. "Don't you dare." Mr. Timothy, trusting his wife and seeing at least the surface that his children seemed okay, remained blissfully unaware. He would stay for a week or two, then depart back for work. As soon as he was gone, the mask would drop and Deborah's cruelty would resume twice as harsh. Thus, Amarachi lived through several years of hardship under her stepmother's constant cruelty. She cooked, cleaned, and took care of Fred, who was growing into a spoiled little boy. Encouraged by his mother's behavior, Fred also began treating Amarachi not like a sister, but like a servant. By the time Fred was 5 years old, he would kick Amarachi if she didn't let him have his way and yell, "I'll tell mommy to punish you," with a bratty sneer. If Amarachi was sweeping the living room, Fred would deliberately spill his juice on the floor and then call out, "You missed a spot, cleaner girl," just to copy his mother's taunt. Deborah would laugh when she witnessed her son's behavior. She even taught him nasty names to call Amarachi, turning it into some twisted game. Amarachi endured it all quietly. She had no other choice. She often thought of running away, but she was still just a child and had no idea where she would go. She held onto the hope that one day her father would truly see what was happening and save her from this nightmare. Until then, she survived day by day, praying silently each night for strength. One sweltering afternoon, after enduring the mistreatment for years, March's life was about to change yet again. By now, she was around 15 years old. She had grown taller and leaner, though much of her growth was stunted by malnutrition and constant stress. Her once bright round face was often downcast and thin. Still, she tried to maintain hope in her heart. That day, Amarachi was scrubbing the bathroom floor, her knees hot from kneeling, and her arms ached as she scrubbed diligently, trying to make the tiles sparkle as Deborah demanded. Meanwhile, Deborah lounged in the living room, sipping a cold drink and fanning herself, while Fred, now about 6, played noisily with his toys. Suddenly, Deborah's phone rang. It was Mr. Timothy calling from the city where he worked. Amarachi could faintly hear the cheerful tone in her father's voice through the phone. He was calling with good news. He planned to return to Lagos in a few days to visit his family. In fact, he had managed to get some time off unexpectedly and would be home by the weekend. "I'll be home on Friday evening," Mr. Timothy announced. "I can't wait to see you, darling. Hi, Amarachi. Hi, Fred." Deborah glanced in the direction of the bathroom where Amarachi was working, a frown forming on her face. If her husband came home, how would she hide the truth this time? Each visit had been harder to mask Amarachi's suffering. Amarachi was getting older, and the effects of years of abuse were harder in disguise. Deborah forced a smile into her phone. "We are all fine, my love. Fred is doing great, and Amarachi, oh, she's just playing outside with a neighbor's child right now," she lied effortlessly. "We can't wait to see you. Safe travels back." After she hung up, Deborah's heart pounded, but not with joy. It was with panic and annoyance. Friday? That's just 3 days away, she thought. Her eyes narrowed as she considered her options. She knew Amarachi might seize the chance to tell her father everything if she got even a moment alone with him. Or worse, Mr. Timothy might notice Amarachi's condition, her worn-out clothes, her tired eyes, the fact that she hadn't been to school in years. Deborah had managed to fabricate stories to cover up this fact so far, but it was becoming risky. That evening, Deborah made a decision. She waited until Fred had fallen asleep in his room. Then she cornered Amarachi in the kitchen, where the girl was cleaning up the dishes after dinner. Deborah's voice was low and cold. "Your father is coming back in a few days," she said. Amarachi looked up surprised and hopeful. "Daddy is coming, really?" Despite her misery, the thought of seeing her father made her smile genuinely for the first time in a long while. Deborah's eyes flashed with irritation at Amarachi's hopeful expression. "Don't think this is good news for you," she hissed. "I know exactly what a cunning girl like you might do. You will run to him with crocodile tears, telling him lies about how I have treated you. You think you are clever, huh?" Amarachi shook her head frantically. "No, ma, I wouldn't," she began, though deep in her heart, she did want to tell her father everything. Still, fear held her back from admitting it. "Quiet," Deborah snapped. "I have no intention of allowing you to ruin things for me. Do you understand? I've worked too hard to build this life. That man trusts me, but I'm not about to let you spoil it with your ungrateful whining." Amarachi pressed herself against the counter, her hands trembling. She had never seen Deborah look so ominous. "I won't say anything, I promise," she whispered. Deborah sneered. "Oh, I know you won't, because you won't be here when he arrives." Amarachi's heart skipped. She didn't fully understand at first. What do you mean, ma?" "I mean you are leaving this house," Deborah declared with a cold finality. "Tonight." Amarachi's eyes widened in alarm and disbelief. Leave the house? Where would she go? This was her home, or at least it used to be, before it turned into a prison. All her meager belongings were here. More importantly, how would her father find her if she wasn't at home when he arrived? He would be worried sick. "Please, ma," Marachi pleaded, dropping to her knees on the kitchen floor, forgetting all about the soapy dishwater and rag in her hands. "Don't send me away. I have nowhere to go. I promise. I won't tell Daddy anything. I promise. I'll stay out of sight if you want. I will hide in the backyard when he comes. Just please don't chase me out." Tears flowed down her face as she begged. Deborah looked down at the little girl without a shred of pity. In fact, Amarachi's desperation seemed to embolden her. She felt a twisted sense of power. Here was the girl who could expose her cruelty, now kneeling and groveling. Deborah curled her lips in a cruel smile. No, Amarachi, I'm done with you. I should have gotten rid of you a long time ago. She stepped away and pointed towards the front door. Get up and get out of my house. Amarachi remained on her knees, sobbing and clutching her hands together in a plea. Mother, please, I'll do anything. I'll work harder. I will never speak a word. Just let me stay. I want to see my daddy. At the mention of her father, Deborah's face hardened further. She reached down and grabbed Amarachi's arm in a tight grip, yanking her up from the floor. Stop begging like a wet cat, she spat. You had me. Out. Deborah dragged Amarachi to the living room. The young girl struggled to find her footing as she was pulled along. Deborah opened the front door. The night air of Lagos was hot and heavy with humidity, and the estate was quiet except for the distant chirping of crickets and the buzz of mosquitoes. Amarachi's heart thudded in her chest. She could not believe this was happening. Deborah shoved a small plastic bag into Amarachi's hands. Inside, Amarachi saw a few of her threadbare clothes crumpled together. Deborah had hastily thrown some of her things into a bag, likely just to avoid Mr. Timothy finding any obvious trace of Amarachi's existence in the house. Take this and go. Don't let me ever see you near this house again, Deborah said, her voice low and dangerous. By now, Amarachi was crying openly, her body shaking with sobs. What will I tell Daddy when he comes? He will ask for me, she managed to say between sobs. Deborah's eyes flashed with cruelty. You won't tell him anything because you won't be here. I will handle your father. I will tell him you ran away. If he loved you enough, he wouldn't have left you here in the first place, would he? Those words cut Amarachi deeply. In her pain and innocence, she had sometimes wondered if her father truly cared. Since he never noticed her suffering, hearing Deborah voice that doubt was like rubbing salt in a wound. Now, get out! Deborah hissed, again practically pushing Amarachi over the threshold. Amarachi stumbled out onto the veranda, clutching the plastic bag of her belongings. She looked back at the only home she had ever known. Even though it had been a place of pain in recent years, it was still where she had memories of her real mother and father loving her. The pretty flowers her mother had planted by the front porch were still there, now overgrown and wild. The sight of them made Amarachi's chest ache. Deborah glared at her one last time. And don't even think of coming back or trying to sneak in when I'm not here. The neighbors will be told that you're a troublemaker and they will chase you off if they see you. With that final threat, Deborah slammed the door shut, leaving Amarachi alone outside in the darkness. For a long moment, Amarachi stood there, barefoot on the cool earth, shaking as she cried. She felt totally lost and terrified. It was late, and she had nowhere to go. She thought about knocking on a neighbor's door for help, but Deborah and Mr. Timothy had only lived in the estate, and Deborah wasn't friendly with the neighbors. Amarachi was too afraid to approach strangers in the middle of the night. Wiping her tears with the back of her hand, Amarachi knew she had to find a place to stay safe until morning. Clutching her little bag, she started walking down the quiet estate road. The estate gate was closed at night, but the security guards knew her as Mr. Timothy's daughter. When she approached the gate, one guard on night duty looked at her with surprise. Ah, Amarachi, where are you going to at this time? He asked, noticing her tear-streaked face and the bag. Amarachi lowered her head to hide her swollen eyes. I'm going to my auntie's place, she lied softly, voice trembling. It's not far, just outside the estate. The guard looked concerned. This late? Does your stepmother know? Yes, Amarachi whispered, not daring to say more. She edged past the gate. The guard hesitated, but he eventually nodded. Perhaps he thought it was some family matter he shouldn't interfere with. He let her through, simply saying, Be careful, okay? It's late. Greet your auntie. Amarachi managed a weak thank you and slipped out into the street beyond the estate. This began the darkest chapter of Amarachi's life. The first night she found shelter under the awning of a closed shop on a nearby street. Lagos nights can be dangerous, especially for a young girl alone. But Amarachi was lucky not to encounter any harm that night. She curled up hugging her plastic bag of clothes, using it as a rough pillow. The concrete ground was even harder than the tiles she had been sleeping on at home. But at least under the shop awning, she had a little cover from the element. She cried softly until she had no tears left, wishing desperately that she could wake up and find that these past years had just been a dream. Morning came, and the city began to stir. Amarachi awoke to the sound of women opening their shops and the shouts of bus conductors calling out destinations to early commuters. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then reality hit her like a punch in the stomach. She was alone on the street, kicked out of her home. Her body was stiff and sore from sleeping on the hard ground, and her stomach crawled with hunger. With nowhere else to go, Amarachi wandered towards a bustling market area not too far from the estate. This market was a lively place where local women sold fruit, vegetables, and other goods. The air smelled of ripe tomatoes, spices, and the smoky aroma of street food being grilled. Amarachi's mother used to take her to the market when she was little, so the area was familiar. As she walked through the market, her ragged appearance caught some attention. She was in an old faded dress and barefoot. Her eyes were red from crying, and she looked exhausted. Some of the market women recognized her faintly. One stout woman selling plantains furrowed her brow and called her, "Hey, this looks like Timothy's girl. Why does she look so unkempt?" But Amarachi was too embarrassed and frightened to stop and talk. What could she say? She just kept moving. By midday, the sun blazing and Amarachi felt faint with hunger. She had no money and no food. She hovered near a store where a woman was selling oranges, hoping maybe the woman would have pity and give her one. The woman noticed her lingering. "Young girl, you want to buy orange?" she asked. Amarachi's cheeks flushed with shame. "No, ma, I'm just looking," she murmured. The woman eyed her closely and noticed how she looked dirty and tired. "Are you not Amarachi, Mr. Timothy's daughter?" she asked, recognizing her face now. At the mention of her father, Amarachi couldn't hold back her tears. Her situation must have been obvious. "Yes, I'm Amarachi," she admitted, voice trembling. The orange seller frowned with concern. "What happened, my dear? Why are you roaming the market alone looking like this? Where is your stepmother?" Amarachi opened her mouth to explain, but the words stuck in her throat. She was overwhelmed with emotion. Seeing the girl start to cry, the kind woman reached out and pulled her gently to the shade of her store. "Come, sit here," she said, offering Amarachi a small wooden stool to sit on. "Whatever it is, you need to eat first." The woman took out an orange, peeled it with a knife, and handed it to Amarachi. Amarachi muttered, "Thank you, ma," and started eating the orange segment. The sweet juice was like heaven to her parched throat and empty stomach. Between bites and sobs, Amarachi found herself telling the orange seller a little bit of her story. She explained that her stepmother had sent her away, though she was too afraid to detail all the abuse. The woman listened sympathetically and shook her head in dismay. "Ah, some women are wicked," she said under her breath. News travels quickly in the marketplace. A few other traders nearby, including a tall thin woman selling vegetables and an older man selling yams, overheard bits of the conversation and gathered around. They all knew Mr. Timothy by name or by face, a polite, hardworking man who shopped there occasionally with his wife. They had noticed that in recent times, they no longer saw Amarachi with the family during market trips, only the wife and her son. Now, they were learning why. One of the market women, named Mama Ngozi, gently patted Amarachi's back. "My child, don't cry. You can help us here at the market if you need to earn some small money or food. It's not much, but at least it will keep you from starving." The community of traders, tough as their lives were, often looked out for each other and even for strangers in need. They decided to let Amarachi do small tasks for them in exchange for food or a little change. That day, Mama Ngozi asked Amarachi to help her sort a pile of peppers and okra. In return, she gave Amarachi a meal of rice and beans wrapped in a leaf. Another woman had Amarachi sweep her store area in exchange for a bottle of water and a few naira coins. An old cobbler at the corner had her watch his store for a few minutes while he took a break, and he rewarded her with a piece of roasted yam. It was hard, menial work, but Amarachi was grateful for any kindness. At least no one here insulted her or hit her. By the end of the day, she had earned a handful of coins. She used a couple of them to buy herself a piece of bread for dinner from a roadside vendor. She found an alley by the market where some other homeless children her age seemed to sleep. It was frightening to join them. She had never slept on the streets among strangers before, but she was too exhausted to keep her eyes open. Hugging her bag of clothes and her tiny earnings, she lay down on a piece of cardboard one of the children gave her and fell into a very dreamless sleep. Over the next few days, this became Amarachi's new reality. Each morning, she would wake up with the sunrise, her body stiff and sometimes beaten by incense from the night. She would make her way to the public tap to wash her face and drink some water. The market women and men would greet her kindly. They gave her little chores, carrying crates of tomatoes, washing vegetables, watching stalls, or helping load goods for customers. In return, they gave her small amounts of money or a meal. It was not a comfortable life, but Amarachi learned to survive. At times, Amarachi would think of her father and cry, wondering if he had come home and what he had been told. Did Daddy come back and find me gone? Does he think I ran away? The thought pained her. She imagined her father would be very worried when he discovered she was missing. Or would he believe Deborah's lies? She shook that thought away. She couldn't bear to think her father would simply accept that she left. Sometimes, at the end of a long day, she would find a quiet corner of the market and allow herself to remember happier times, her mother's gentle face, or her father's warm laugh when she would dance around the living room as a little girl. Those memories were like a balm in her aching heart, though they often brought fresh tears as well. Despite all her hardship, Amarachi remained a kind and humble girl. The market people grew fond of her. They admired how polite and hardworking she was, despite her young age and whatever she had gone through. A few times, some of them asked more about her father so they could contact him, but Amarachi was hesitant. She didn't know her father's phone number by heart, and Deborah certainly wouldn't help. Also, part of her was afraid. What if her father truly believed she ran away? Would he be angry at her? She felt stuck in a painful uncertainty, hoping each day that her father would somehow find her. That weekend, Mr. Timothy's taxi pulled up to the front of his house in the evening. Just as the sun was setting, he stepped out eager to see his family, especially Amarachi, whom he had missed dearly. He carried a small suitcase in one hand and a toy he had bought for Fred in the other. As he approached the front door, he felt a slight unease. Something felt off. The house seemed too quiet. Typically, Amarachi would run out to greet him or he would hear Fred's playful shout. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. "Hello, I'm home," he called out. Deborah appeared from the kitchen, drying her hands on a towel. She put on a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. "Welcome back, darling," she said, giving him a hug. Fred toddled up and hugged his father's leg, and Mr. Timothy bent down to lift his son into his arms. After hugging Fred, Mr. Timothy looked around, still not seeing his daughter. "Where is Amarachi?" he asked, expecting her to pop out any moment. "Is she out getting something or at a neighbor's house?" Deborah's smile faltered. She feigned a confusion and concern. "Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about," she said slowly. "Amarachi, she's not here." Mr. Timothy's heart skipped a beat. "Not here? What do you mean? Where is she?" He set Fred down, beginning to feel alarmed. Deborah sighed dramatically, touching her hand to her forehead as if distressed. "I mean, she's gone. She ran away from home." Mr. Timothy's eyes widened in shock. "Ran away? That's not possible. Why would she do that?" He quickly shook his head. No. Amarachi wouldn't just run away without a reason. She's a sensible girl. What happened, Deborah? Tell me the truth." Deborah put on her best act, wiping an imaginary tear. I don't know, she lied. Everything was fine. And then a few nights ago, I went to check on her in the middle of the night and she was gone. I found the front door wide open. I was terrified. I thought maybe she sleepwalked out or something bad happened. But then I found that she had taken a few clothes with her. I think she left on purpose. Mr. Timothy stared at his wife in disbelief, a cold feeling growing in his stomach. That makes no sense, he said in a low voice. He knew his daughter's character. Amarachi was obedient and not the type to run away. And if something had upset her, why would she not leave a note or try to contact him? Did she say anything to you? Did you two have an argument? He demanded. Deborah shook her head quickly. No argument, I promise. I've been trying to find her. I even told the neighbors and the estate guards to keep an eye out. The last part was also a lie. She had done no such thing. I didn't want to worry you at all, so I was hoping she would come back on her own. But she trailed off, shrugging helplessly. Mr. Timothy's hands balled into fists at his side. Something was definitely wrong with this story. Amarachi living on her own accord just did not ring true. His voice hardened. Deborah, are you absolutely sure that's what happened? You didn't scold her harshly or do something that scared her off? Deborah gasped and played offense. How could you think that of me? I love Amarachi like my own child. She looked as though she might start sobbing. I was worried sick, and now you're accusing me. This is unfair, Timothy. But Mr. Timothy was not convinced by her dramatics. His fatherly instincts were screaming that Amarachi was in danger or hurt somewhere. He turned away from Deborah and immediately strode out of the house, his mind racing with what to do. He decided the first thing was to alert the authorities. Where are you going? Deborah called after him, her tone a mix of worry and irritation. To the police station, he responded without looking back. And you, he pointed at Deborah, a fierce anger in his eyes. You should better pray we find my daughter soon and safe. If I find out you had anything to do with this, so help me God. There was a threat in his voice that Deborah had never had before. Mr. Timothy was usually gentle and even-tempered, but in that moment, he was a furious father. Deborah stood in the doorway speechless as she watched him drive off into the night to find help. Deep down, she felt a band of fear. Could she have pushed things too far? If Amarachi was found and told the truth, Deborah bit her lip, anxiously considering her next steps. Mr. Timothy reached the local police station and filed a missing person report for Amarachi. The officers recognized the urgency. A 15-year-old girl missing from home was no small matter. They asked him routine questions. Did she have any friends she could be staying with? Any relatives in town? Mr. Timothy shook his head, answering each question as best as he could. He also gave them a recent photo of Amarachi that he had in his wallet. It was from a few years ago, but it was better than nothing. The police assured him that they would do their best to find her. They planned to send out officers to search nearby areas and also inform street patrols to look out for a girl of her description. But Mr. Timothy couldn't just sit and wait. He was distraught and felt personally responsible. How had he been so blind? Why hadn't he checked more on his daughter? Regrets gnawed at him. Instead of going home, he decided to drive around to look for Amarachi himself. He started by going to estate gates to talk to security guards. At the gate, one guard was just coming on duty for the night shift. Mr. Timothy showed him Amarachi's photo. Brother, did you see this girl leave the estate recently? She's my daughter and she's missing, he explained. Voice shaking. The guy recognized Amarachi immediately and his face fell. Ah, Mr. Timothy, I'm so sorry. Yes, I saw her, he said. She came out 3 nights ago, very late, carrying a small bag. I was surprised and I asked where she was going. She said she was going to her auntie's place and that her stepmother knew. Mr. Timothy's jaw tightened. Deborah had indeed lied. The guard continued looking regretful. I thought it was odd, but she insisted she had permission. I let her go. She seemed upset, but I didn't want to interfere. If I had known something was wrong, I would have stopped her, sir. Mr. Timothy shook his head, trying to remain calm. "It's not your fault," he said. "Thank you for telling me." So Amarachi left at night with a bag. Auntie's place. She had no aunt in Lagos. That meant Deborah had likely forced her out. His stomach churned and he felt a sort of anger and guilt. This poor girl was out there somewhere, alone at night, because he hadn't been around to protect her. He got back into his car and drove slowly through the neighboring street, peering into alleys and calling out Amarachi's name from the car window. He drove around until midnight, with no sign of her. He barely slept that night. And early the next morning, he was out again, checking around the local bus parks, thinking maybe she might try to go somewhere far. He visited a couple of nearby churches and shelters to ask if anyone had seen her. With each passing hour, his worry intensified. On the second day of searching, Mr. Timothy decided to check the market and busier streets, thinking that if she was hungry, maybe she might be around those places looking for food or help. He enlisted a couple of his friends, and the police also circulated in their patrols. It was on the 5th day of Amarachi's disappearance, as Mr. Timothy was walking through a crowded open-air market, that something caught his eye. Amid the throng of people, he noticed a young girl with a familiar face. She was balancing a large basket of vegetables on her head, following behind a customer who had likely hired her to carry goods. Her dress was dirty and tattered, and she looked tired, but he could not mistake his own daughter. "Amarachi!" Mr. Timothy shouted, heart pounding in his chest. The girl stopped in her tracks at the sound of her name. She turned slowly, and when her eyes met her father's, the basket of vegetables nearly tipped off her head. She quickly steadied it with her hands, disbelief flashing across her face. "Daddy!" Her voice was small, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Mr. Timothy closed the distance between them in a few long strides. He carefully took the heavy basket off her head and set it down on the ground. The customer, a woman buying vegetables, looked on in confusion as this scene unfolded. Amarachi stood there trembling, unsure if she was about to be scolded or embraced. She feared that maybe her stepmother had convinced her father she ran away and that he might be angry at her. But all that fear melted away when Mr. Timothy pulled Amarachi into a tight hug. He held her as if he would never let go, tears streaming down his face. "My baby, I found you," he choked out. "Thank God I found you." Amarachi burst into tears against his chest. For the first time in years, she felt safe. She clung to her father, sobbing uncontrollably, all the pain and loneliness pouring out. The market woman, whose basket Amarachi had been carrying, realized what was happening. She walked up and gently touched Mr. Timothy's shoulder. "Sir, this is your daughter?" she asked softly. Mr. Timothy nodded, wiping his eyes and trying to compose himself. Yes, she is. Thank you for looking out for her," she said, guessing that the market people might have been helping her survive. The woman nodded. "She's a good girl. She tried to help us as much as we could. Please take care of her." Another trader, Mama Ngozi, recognized Mr. Timothy and came over. "Sir, we're happy you have found her. She has been through a lot these past few days," she said gently, eyeing Amarachi's thin form and tear-streaked face. Mr. Timothy felt a fresh wave of guilt and pain. He crouched down to look Amarachi in the eyes, still holding her shoulders protectively. "Amarachi, I'm so sorry," he said softly. "I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I didn't know. I promise. I didn't know you were suffering like this." Amarachi shook her head, tears still spilling. She had dreamed of this moment, her father coming to rescue her, but also dreaded it, feeling both relief and a bit of anger. "Daddy, she chased me out," Amarachi managed to say between sobs. "I know," he replied, voice trembling with anger at the thought. "I know, my dear. I'm going to deal with that. But first, let's get you something to eat and drink." The crowd of market folks who had witnessed the reunion offered suggestions of nearby places. Mr. Timothy took off his jacket and gently wrapped it around Amarachi's shoulder to cover her up properly. He led her to a small local restaurant across the street. Nothing fancy, but it was a clean place with a few plastic tables and chairs, serving hot meals to market traders and customers. He sat her down and ordered a plate of jollof rice and fish and plantains for her, and a bottle of water. Amarachi hadn't had such a satisfying meal in years, and her stomach growled loudly at the sight and smell of the food. Still, She was so overwhelmed by emotion that she ate slowly, trying to calm down. Mr. Timothy sat beside her, watching with concern. He gently encouraged, "Eat, Amarachi, please. Eat as much as you want. You must be starving." She nodded and took a few more bites. The rice and sweet fried plantains reminded her of better times. As she ate, Mr. Timothy held her hand and asked softly, "Can you tell me what happened? I need to know everything, Amarachi. I promise you, I will listen and I will believe you." Amarachi looked up at her father. His eyes were full of worry and love. It was a look she remembered from before her mother died. The way he would look at her if she ever got hurt or sick. She felt a lump in her throat, but she needed to let it all out. And so, haltingly at first, she began to speak. She told him everything, in between bites of food and gulps of water. Amarachi recounted the years of torment. She spoke of how Deborah's attitude changed as soon as she was pregnant, how the kindness turned to cruelty. She described the chores, the insults, and the times she was slapped or locked in the storeroom for misbehaving. She told him how she was pulled out of school and forced to lie about it. As she went on, her voice gained a bit of strength, fueled by all the hurt she had bottled up. She talked about sleeping on the floor and being denied food, about Fred's own cruel behavior that mirrored his mother's, and about that night, the night Deborah threw her out like garbage. Mr. Timothy listened in stunned silence, tears in his eyes and his face pale with shock and anger. A few times, he closed his eyes and shook his head, whispering, "Oh my God," under his breath, as Amarachi recounted all the terrible incidents, like the time she was so sick with fever, or Deborah refused to buy her medicine, making her still cook dinner while ill, or the time Deborah had pulled Amarachi by the ear, accidentally burning the food, and left her ear bleeding. By the end of Amarachi's story, Mr. Timothy's hands were trembling with rage, but he kept his voice gentle for Amarachi's sake. He didn't want to scare her with his anger that was truly directed at Deborah and himself. "I'm so sorry, Amarachi," he said again, his voice breaking. "I should have been here. I should have known. I never imagined Deborah would be so evil. I trusted her and I failed you." He gently wiped the tears off Amarachi's cheeks with his thumb. Amarachi looked at her father, seeing the genuine remorse and pain in his face. I thought she knew and didn't care," she admitted in a small voice. The confession broke Mr. Timothy's heart even more. "No, my precious girl," he said, choking up. "I had no idea. I swear I had no idea. I would never have allowed this if I knew. You are my child, my first child, and I love you. I have always loved you. I was just blind. I was foolishly blind." He embraced her again, and they cried together quietly in the little restaurant. After a few minutes, Mr. Timothy took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "Listen to me, Amarachi," he said, pulling back to look at her firmly. "This will never happen to you again. I promise. I'm going to take care of this right now." He paid for the meal, thanked the restaurant owner, who had politely given them privacy, and then led Amarachi outside. Mr. Timothy had already informed the police, and he knew he should inform them that he had found his daughter. He dialed the number of the officer who was handling the case and quickly updated him. The policeman on the line was relieved that the girl was found, but when Mr. Timothy explained in a tight, controlled voice what Amarachi had told him about being mistreated and then thrown out, the officer's tone became serious. "That's a criminal matter, Mr. Timothy," the officer said. "Child abuse and child endangerment. We will meet you at your residence with a team as soon as possible to take appropriate action." Mr. Timothy agreed and arranged to meet the police at his house. He then guided Amarachi to his car. On the drive home, he kept a comforting arm around her shoulder, as if assuring himself that she was really there and safe. Amarachi, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster, leaned against her father, eyes closed. She felt safe for the first time in a long time, but she was also nervous about what was going to happen next. When Mr. Timothy's car pulled up to the bungalow, it was early evening. Deborah was pacing on the porch, visibly agitated. She had been on edge ever since her husband stormed off. She certainly hadn't expected him to find Amarachi so quickly. The moment she saw Amarachi step out of the car beside her father, Deborah's face went pale. This was the outcome she had feared. Amarachi, Deborah exclaimed, trying to sound surprised and relieved. Oh, thank goodness, you are safe. She rushed forward as if to hug Amarachi, but Mr. Timothy stepped protectively in front of his daughter, blocking Deborah's path. Stay right there, he said sharply to his wife. His voice was so stern that Deborah froze in place. Before Deborah could utter another word, two police cars arrived at the house and parked at the curb. Two uniformed officers stepped out, along with a female officer and a plainclothes detective. They approached the porch swiftly. Deborah's eyes widened in alarm. Timothy, what's this? She stammered, trying to maintain her composure. Neighbors in the estate started to notice the commotion, with a few peeking out of their windows or opening their doors slightly to see what was happening. Mr. Timothy looked at Deborah with an expression of disgust and sorrow. This, he said in a low voice, is the consequences of what you have done. The lead officer stepped forward, looking between Deborah and Amarachi. The policeman had stern face. Are you Mrs. Deborah Timothy? He asked. Deborah nodded hesitantly. Yes, I am. The officer's tone was formal and unyielding. Mrs. Deborah, you are under arrest for the abuse and abandonment of a minor, namely your stepdaughter, Amarachi Timothy. Deborah's mouth fell open. What? Abuse? No. There must be some misunderstanding, she sputtered, casting a quick glare at Amarachi. She ran away. I never. But the officer raised a hand to stop her excuses. The female officer stepped forward and gently took Amarachi aside to ask her a few questions, while the detectives produced a small notebook, reading from it. We have a report that you willfully neglected the child by depriving her of food, denying her schooling, forcing her into child labor, and ultimately driving her out of the home, which endangered her life. These are very serious allegations, ma'am. Deborah's eyes darted around. She realized the police must have gotten this information from Amarachi via her husband. Her heart pounded in panic. She's lying. Why would I do such things to my own stepdaughter? I raised her like my own, Deborah insisted, trying to muster a convincing tone, but it came out shrill. Mr. Timothy shook his head, his face full of pain and anger. Stop lying, Deborah. It's over. Amarachi told me everything. Everything. His voice cracked on the last word, the betrayal cutting him deeply. At that, Deborah dropped the pretense. Her expression shifted from fake innocence to desperation. She suddenly lunged toward Amarachi, who was standing a few steps away with female officer. One of the officers quickly stepped in and held Deborah back by the arm. Deborah screamed, not in anger now but in fear. Timothy, please. I can explain. Don't do this. Don't let it take me away. Little Fred, who had been peeking from inside the doorway, now stepped out and started crying at the sight of his mother being restrained. Mommy, Mommy, he wailed, running to her side. One officer gently guided the boy back a few steps so he wouldn't interfere. Deborah started sobbing, realizing the gravity of the situation. In a final attempt to save herself, she dropped to her knees despite the officer holding her arm. She clutched the hem of Mr. Timothy's shirt. Please, Timothy, I'm sorry, she cried. I know I did wrong. I was overwhelmed and I made terrible mistakes. Please don't let them take me to prison. I beg you, I will change. I will be better. I swear. Just give me another chance. Amarachi watched this. Standing near her father now, he felt a mix of emotions. This was the woman who had made her life miserable and threw her out like trash. Yet here Deborah was reduced to begging. It was pitiful in a way, but Amarachi's heart had been hardened by too many years of hurt to feel sympathy now. She turned her face away, not wanting to meet Deborah's pleading eyes. Mr. Timothy looked down at his wife. This woman he once loved, or thought he loved, and felt nothing but heartbreak and anger. Her tears did not move him. In fact, they only reminded him of the countless tears his daughter had shed because of her. He gently removed Deborah's hands from his shirt. I trusted you with my child, he said quietly, his voice trembling, and you betrayed our trust in the worst way. I left to build a better life for us, and you destroyed my family. There are consequences, Deborah. Seeing that Mr. Timothy was unmoved, Deborah turned to Amarachi, still on her knees. Amarachi, my child, please forgive me, she cried, reaching a hand out towards the girl. Tell them to stop, please. I was wrong. I'll treat you well from now on, I promise. Don't send me away. I'm the only mother figure you have. Amarachi felt a surge of courage as she heard those words. She stepped forward, her eyes surprisingly calm despite the tears on her cheeks. In a clear voice, she replied, You lost the right to call yourself my mother figure the day you decided to hurt me and throw me out. You never treated me like a daughter, so you are not my mother. Deborah flinched at Amarachi's words as a slap. She opened her mouth to plead again, but the officers had had enough. They put Deborah to her feet and began to lead her to the police car. Fred, seeing his mother being taken away, ran after her and held onto her dress, crying loudly. Daddy, please. Fred cried out to Mr. Timothy. Please, don't let them take my mommy. I'm sorry, mommy, mommy. The little boy was in tears, not fully understanding what was happening, only knowing that his mother was in distress. Mr. Timothy, his heart heavy. He had raised Fred as his own for 5 years, and despite everything, the child was innocent in this. But at the moment, his trust in Deborah was completely shattered. He could not find any words for Fred. He simply turned his face away as the officers carefully pried the boy's hands off Deborah's dress. One kind-hearted officer picked Fred up gently, trying to console him, while the others put Deborah in the back seat of their police car. Deborah was sobbing openly now, reaching out through the open car window. Fred, my baby, I'm sorry, I'll be back soon. Then she looked at Timothy, her face streaked with tears. Timothy, please forgive me, she cried desperately, but the officer shut the door, muffling her voice. Within moments, the police car started and drove up slowly through the estate, taking Deborah away. Fred, still crying, was set down gently by the officer who held him. The policeman gave Mr. Timothy a sympathetic look. We'll take good care of the formalities, sir. Someone will contact you about the case. For now, just take care of your kids, he said before he got in the remaining car and followed the orders. The dust had barely settled from this dramatic scene when Mr. Timothy found himself with both children on the porch, Amarachi standing quietly by his side and Fred a feet away, sobbing miserably. Amarachi felt a sting of pity seeing Fred crying, but she also remembered how cruel he had been to her. She stayed near her father, unsure of what would happen next. Mr. Timothy finally looked over his son. Fred's cheeks were wet with tears, and he looked frightened and lost. Daddy, Fred sniffled. Please, bring mommy back. I promise I'll be good, please. His little shoulders shook as he cried. Mr. Timothy's emotions were in turmoil. He was furious at Deborah, devastated by Amarachi's suffering, and yet also felt heartbreak for his child who, in his own way, was also a victim of Deborah's lies and parenting. Mr. Timothy sighed deeply and walked over to Fred. He knelt down and placed his hands on the boy's shoulder. Fred looked at him with wide, tearful eyes. Fred, Mr. Timothy began gently, your mother did something very wrong. And when people do very wrong things, there are consequences. I'm sorry you have to see this, but it's not your fault, okay? Fred sobbed. Is she going to jail? Will I ever see her again? He asked innocently. That would depend on what the police find and what the court says, Mr. Timothy answered truthfully. Though trying to simplify the situation for the child's understanding, I'm going to do what I think is best for our family. But I can't allow anyone to hurt Amarachi again, not even your mother. Fred looked over at Amarachi for a second with a flash of anger amidst his tears. Remembering that his stepsister's return had directly led to his mother's arrest, he pulled away from Mr. Timothy's hand. I hate you, he suddenly screamed at Amarachi, his little face contorted with rage and grief. If anything happens to my mommy, I will never forgive you. Amarachi, never! His high-pitched voice echoed in the quiet evening air. Amarachi felt a jolt of his words. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came. What could she say? She hadn't wanted any of this either. All she ever wanted was to be treated kindly and have her father back. Yet, she could understand Fred's fear of losing his mother, twisted as that mother's influence had been. Mr. Timothy stood up and interjected firmly. Fred, that's enough. Stone was not harsh, but it was very firm, more authority than the boy had heard from him before. Go inside the house. Fred looked at his father, surprised at the command. But inside now, Mr. Timothy repeated. Fred, sulky and heartbroken, hung his head and shuffled into the house. He gave Amarachi one last glare and then ran into his room, slamming the door. Mr. Timothy rubbed his temples. He looked older than he had just a few days ago. This event had clearly taken a toll. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you had to hear that, Amarachi, he said softly. Amarachi shook her head slowly. It's okay, Daddy. He's just upset. Mr. Timothy gave a small sad nod. He realized that as angry as he was with Deborah, he also had a responsibility to Fred, at least for now, but something was gnawing at him ever since Deborah had been arrested. Fred was his son, or so he had always believed. But Amarachi's revelation and Deborah's action made him question everything. Could there be more that Deborah had hidden? Remember the mysterious man at the gate of the house earlier that day as he was returning from the market with Amarachi? Yes, amid the rush bringing Amarachi home and confronting Deborah with the police, something peculiar had happened. A man unknown to Timothy had approached him at the gate just when he arrived with Amarachi. But before the police came, Sir Timothy recalled the man looked a bit rough around the edges with an anxious face. He had tried to speak to Timothy, claiming to have something to say about Fred. At the time, Mr. Timothy had no patience for any distraction. He was focused on dealing with Deborah, so he had dismissed the stranger, telling him to leave at once. The man had left, but not before yelling, "Ask Deborah who Fred's real father is." At that moment, Mr. Timothy had been bewildered and assumed it was just some play or nonsense. But now, with the dust settling, those words rang in his ears. Who Fred's real father is? What was that supposed to mean? A terrible suspicion began to form in Mr. Timothy's mind, one that he could hardly bear to contemplate. He turned to Amarachi. Sweetheart, are you okay to be alone for a bit? I need to make a phone call. Amarachi nodded. She was tired and emotionally drained. I'll just go to my room. Or, can I still use my old room? He asked hesitantly, not sure what the situation was with Fred in the house and all. Of course, Mr. Timothy said immediately. Your room is still there. You might have to get a new bed since that woman removed yours. But for now, you can take my bed and I will sleep on the couch. We'll sort everything tomorrow, okay? Amarachi offered a faint smile. The idea of sleeping on a real bed again, and especially knowing her father was near, was already bringing her some comfort. Thank you, Daddy. Go in and rest. I will join you soon, Mr. Timothy said, kissing her forehead softly. Amarachi walked inside, giving one glance to Fred's closed door down the hallway. She then went into her father's bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, feeling how soft it was compared to the floors and ground she had been sleeping on. Meanwhile, Mr. Timothy remained outside on the porch, pulling out his phone. He had a contact of a private laboratory in Lagos that did DNA testing. It was a place he knew through a colleague who had once had a paternity test done. That Timothy's hand shook a bit as he dialed the number. It was late, but the call went through to an operator who noted down his request for a paternity test and set an appointment for the next morning. That night, Mr. Timothy could hardly sleep. Too much had happened. Deborah's betrayal was deeper than he ever imagined. He thought he knew heartbreak when Amarachi's mother died, but this was a new kind of pain, being deceived and discovering the suffering of his daughter. And now the possibility that Fred might not even be his son weighed on him heavily. He looked at the sleeping figure of Amarachi next to him. She had insisted he sleep on the same bed with her that night. She was afraid he might disappear again. He stroked her hair gently, watching her finally sleeping peacefully. Promised himself he would protect her happiness from now on, no matter what. In the middle of the night, he was awakened by a soft knock on the bedroom door. It was Fred, his eyes puffy from crying. The little boy had a blanket clutched in one hand and looked very small and sad. Daddy, he said in a trembling voice, I'm scared. Sir Timothy's heart melted a little. He carefully got up, not to awake Amarachi, and stepped out to speak to Fred. He led the boy to the living room sofa and sat him down. What are you scared of, son? He asked gently. Mommy is gone, and they were police. Fred sniffled. Did I do something bad? Is she gone because I was bad? Mr. Timothy immediately shook his head and hugged Fred. No, no, didn't do anything wrong. Your mom made mistakes, big mistakes. That's not your fault. Fred looked up with watery eyes. Do you hate me now because mommy was mean to Amarachi? That question hit Mr. Timothy like a blow. Oh, Fred, no, I don't hate you. You're just a child and Amarachi is your sister. None of this mess is your fault. But, he paused, choosing his words carefully. I'm very upset with your mother for how she treated Amarachi and for lying to both of us. Fred nodded slowly. He hesitated and then asked, is Amarachi going to go away again? No, Mr. Timothy said firmly. Never again. She will stay with us and you must accept that. And you should apologize to her for being unkind, okay? Fred looked down, shamefaced. Perhaps, remembering his threat, he mumbled, okay, I'll say sorry. Mr. Timothy stayed with Fred until he fell asleep on the couch, then draped the blanket over him. His feelings about Fred were now a complicated mix of genuine care for the boy he raised and uncertainty about the future, pending the truth he intended to uncover. The following morning, Mr. Timothy took Fred, who was still unaware of exactly why, to a diagnostic center for a DNA test. Amarachi stayed at home, under the watch of a kind neighbor whom Mr. Timothy had quickly informed of the situation. He didn't want to bring Amarachi along for this. It was a sensitive matter. At the lab, a nurse gently swabbed the inside of Fred's cheek and took a sample of Mr. Timothy's blood. Fred was curious and a bit nervous about what was going on, but Mr. Timothy just told him it was a health test. Within a day, the result was ready. Mr. Timothy had been on pins and needles until he got the call. He went to collect the report alone, leaving both children with the neighbor for a short while. As he sat in his car outside the lab, he opened the envelope. With trembling hands, he read the words once, then twice, hoping he had misread them. But he hadn't. The test was conclusive. 0% probability of paternity. Fred was not his biological son. Mr. Timothy let out a shuddering breath. Despite all the suspicions, a part of him had still hoped it wasn't true. He felt a strange mixture of sorrow, anger, and oddly, relief. Sorrow that the boy he loved as a son was not biologically his. Anger at Deborah for deceiving him. And relief that now everything made sense. Deborah's extreme favoritism, why she had been so desperate to marry quickly, and why she had been so eager to get rid of Amarachi, perhaps to secure all resources for her own child. It was like a final piece of the puzzle clicking into place. Armed with this truth, Mr. Timothy made another decision. As hurt and betrayed as he felt, he knew Fred was innocent in this. The boy thought of him as his father and had no idea about any other man. But Mr. Timothy also knew he could never look at Deborah or the situation the same way again. His marriage was effectively over, and now it was time to confront Deborah one last time with this truth and then decide what he'd do about Fred's future. Mr. Timothy drove to the police station where Deborah was being held, having been charged and awaiting further legal action. Using his influence and being the complainant, he managed to get a brief meeting with her in a visitation room. Deborah looked disheveled and broken from a night in custody. The moment she saw Mr. Timothy, she stood up, eyes red from crying. Timothy, thank you for coming. Please get me out of here. I beg you, she pleaded. Mr. Timothy stood across the table from her, keeping a cold distance. He tossed the folded DNA test on the table between them. I didn't come to free you, Deborah. I came for the truth, he said quietly. Deborah looked confused, then wary. She slowly picked up the paper and opened it. She scanned the contents. Mr. Timothy watched as her face turned ashen and she sank back down on the chair. The paper fluttering from her hand, she opened her mouth. No words came out. So, Mr. Timothy said bitterly, it's true. Fred is not my son. Deborah burst into tears, covering her face. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I'm sorry, Timothy. Who is he? Mr. Timothy's voice was as cold as ice. Deborah knew exactly what he meant. She sniffled and lowered her hands, her fingers twisting nervously. Do you remember, before we got married, I told you about an ex-boyfriend who left me? His name is Patrick. Mr. Timothy's mind flashed back. Yes, he remembered Deborah mentioning a past relationship that ended badly. She had been so sweet and convincing then. He hadn't propped much. Now, he clenched his jaw. I was with Patrick before I met you, Deborah continued quietly. He got me pregnant, but when I told him, he denied responsibility. He left me. I was scared and alone. I didn't want to raise a child without a husband. And I knew no decent man would want to marry a pregnant woman easily. Then I met you. She paused, looking up at Mr. Timothy with imploring eyes. You were so kind, stable, and you loved me. I panicked. I thought if I told you the truth, you would leave me too. So I hid the pregnancy. I wasn't showing much when we met. By the time I really showed, we were already married, and I tried to pass the baby off as yours. Mr. Timothy closed his eyes, pained. So you trapped me in a lie. Deborah shook her head frantically. I did love you, Timothy. I grew to truly love you, but I was selfish and scared, and I was jealous. Her eyes filled with regret. Jealous of Amarachi and the love you had for her and your first wife. Every time I saw her, I felt threatened, like you would always love her more than the baby and me. It's a horrible thing, I know, she wept, but I couldn't help it. Then after Fred was born, it only got worse. I wanted him to have everything. I wanted him to get all the attention. I didn't want Amarachi overshadowing him or taking what I thought she should be his. Your love, your money, everything. Mr. Timothy listened, feeling sick. So, you admit you abused my daughter? Deborah lowered her head in shame. Yes, I regret it now. I was wrong. I was evil to her. I see that now. He looked up, tears streaming. Timothy, please, I don't expect you to forgive me, but please, think of Fred. Even if he's not your blood, you are the only father he knows. Don't throw us away completely. I'll accept a divorce if you want. I will go, but please don't take Fred's father away from him. Sir Timothy was silent for a long time. He thought of Fred crying in the living room, asking if he was hated. It was true, the boy knew no other father, but the hurt Deborah had caused was too deep. I will make sure Fred is taken care of, he said quietly, but not as your husband. Our marriage is over, Deborah. I will file for a divorce immediately. As for Fred, I need time to think about how to handle that. He deserves a better mother and a stable home, but I don't know if I can be in his life after what you have done. When I look at him now, I only see your betrayal. Deborah sobbed harder, trying to reach out for his hand across the table, but he withdrew his hand. Timothy, please. I love him so much. I know I failed as a mother to Amarachi, but Fred is innocent. Don't punish him for my sins. Sir Timothy sighed heavily. The one you punished unjustly was Amarachi. That's the child who needs me the most right now, and I would devote myself to her. You have caused irreparable damage, Deborah. He stood up, feeling that there was nothing more to say. I've arranged for your bail, he added curtly. Not because I forgive you, but because I want this dealt with sweetly, and I don't want our private matters dragged out more than necessary. You'll be released, but you will have to answer for what you have done in court. True to his word, Sir Timothy had paid the bail through his lawyer before seeing her, so Deborah was released later that day. She came home once more, not as a welcome wife, but to pack her things and Fred's belongings under supervision. When Deborah arrived back at the house, escorted by Mr. Timothy's lawyer and with Mr. Timothy present, Amarachi stayed in her room, not wanting to face her stepmother again. She could hear the muffled sounds of Deborah moving about and the occasional sobs of sniffles, but Amarachi didn't go out to look. Instead, she sat by the window, looking out at the sunny street and feeling a whirlwind of emotions, relief that Deborah was leaving, anxiety about what could happen to Fred, and a cautious hope for the future. In the living room, Fred was clinging to Mr. Timothy. He had been told gently that his mommy had to go away for a while, and that he might go stay with his real father or with his maternal grandmother, Deborah's mother, for some time. This news confused and upset the boy deeply. He didn't remember any real father at all. Apparently, Patrick had never been in his life, so hearing that someone else was his father left him shocked. What do you mean, my real father? "Isn't Daddy my father?" he asked in a small, dismayed voice. Deborah had only burst into tears, unable to answer him properly, and Mr. Timothy had gently explained that Mr. Timothy raised him, but another man was his biological father. Fred had felt a swell of confusion and betrayal. His own mother had lied to him about something so important. Still, as young as he was mostly scared and sad, not fully understanding why everything was changing. His grandmother lived in another state, which sounded far and unfamiliar. The only home and family he knew was here, and he was terrified by the idea of leaving it. Deborah emerged from the bedroom with two suitcases. Her eyes were swollen, and she looked at Mr. Timothy and Fred with deep sorrow. She knelt down to hug Fred tightly, both of them crying. "My son," she whispered, "Mommy loves you so much. I'm so sorry for all of this. You be a good boy, okay? I might need to go away for a bit, but Grandma will take care of you, and maybe one day your daddy, Tim, will forgive, and you can see him again." Fred wailed softly. "No, Mommy. I want to stay with Daddy and Amarachi. I promise I'll be good. I won't be mean to her again. Please, let's stay." This broke Deborah's heart further. She looked up at Timothy, who stood there sternly, arms folded. "Timothy, I beg of you, consider keeping Fred. I know I have no right to ask anything, but he adores you. You are his father in every way that matters." Mr. Timothy's face was green. He felt sympathy for our child, but he also knew that having Fred around would be a constant reminder of Deborah's deceit. Moreover, Fred's presence would likely be difficult for Amarachi, given how he treated her, though he was just a child mimicking his mother. Mr. Timothy had thought long and had the previous night about what to do. He had already contacted Deborah's relatives. Deborah's mother was willing to take Fred in temporarily, and Patrick, the biological father, had been unreachable after his outburst at the gate. Perhaps he had just wanted to stir trouble or had brief regrets and then disappeared again. If Patrick didn't step up, Mr. Timothy would ensure Fred was cared for, but he also knew he needed a fresh start for himself and his daughter. "My decision is made," Mr. Timothy said quietly. "Fred will go with you, at least to your mother's for now. I'll provide financial support for him, but I cannot have either of you in my life after what happened. It's best for Amarachi and for me." He looked at Fred, who gazed back with tearful, confused eyes. Mr. Timothy knelt one more time and placed a gentle hand on the boy's cheek. "Fred, you have to go with your mom now. I'm sorry, little one. This is goodbye for now." Fred choked out a sob. "But I want to stay with you, Daddy." Mr. Timothy felt tears well up, but held them back. "I know, and I'm sorry. Maybe when you are older, you will understand. But I have to do what's best for Amarachi and for me right now." Fred flung his arms around Mr. Timothy's neck in a tight hug. "I'm sorry, Daddy. Please don't hate me." Mr. Timothy hugged him back, patting his small back. "I don't hate you. Not at all. You be a brave boy, okay? And remember what I said. None of this is your fault." After a long moment, Deborah gently pulled Fred away, both of them crying. She looked at Mr. Timothy and said, "Thank you for everything you did for us. I'm truly sorry." He gave a brief nod, but could not find any kind words in reply. The lawyer helped carry the suitcases outside, where a taxi was already waiting. It was time for Deborah and Fred to leave for good. As Deborah walked toward the door with her son, Amarachi finally stepped out of her room. She wanted to see this chapter close with her own eyes. Deborah paused when she saw Amarachi. The two locked eyes. Deborah's lips trembled. "Amarachi, I'm so..." Amarachi raised a hand softly, stopping her. "You already said that you are sorry." "I had. I hope you find a way to be better, Auntie Deborah." Amarachi used a formal tone, pointedly, not to calling her mom or any endearment. She then shifted her gaze to Fred. The young boy looked at her with a mixture of anger, confusion, and sadness. Amarachi mustered a small, kind smile at him, despite all the pain he had caused. "Goodbye, Fred. Take care of yourself. I forgive you for everything. I know it wasn't really you. It was circumstances." She struggled to find the right word instead of directly blaming his mother in front of him. Fred just sniffled and looked down, clinging to Deborah's hand. In truth, he felt ashamed, but didn't know how to express it. He had enjoyed bullying Amarachi when his mother encouraged it. But now everything was upside down, and part of him felt he was losing a sister as well as his father. With nothing more to say, Deborah quietly led Fred out of the door. Mr. Timothy, Amarachi, and the lawyer followed to see them off. The taxi driver loaded the suitcases, and Deborah and Fred got into the back seat. Fred pressed his face to the window, tears still streaming. Mr. Timothy gave him a little wave, which Fred weakly returned. Deborah couldn't meet Mr. Timothy's eyes anymore. She stared at her lap, knowing she had destroyed something precious. The taxi drove off, winding through the estate until it was out of sight. Deborah and Fred were gone. A heavy silence hung in the air as Mr. Timothy closed the front door and leaned against it. Taking a deep breath, Amarachi stood in the living room, not sure how to feel. She was glad her tormentor was gone, relieved that her life was no longer in danger or misery. But she also felt a twinge of sadness for Fred and for her father, who had been hurt so deeply. Mr. Timothy looked at Amarachi. She looked back at him. It was just the two of them now, as it had been in the beginning after her mother died, father and daughter alone but together. Mr. Timothy managed a small smile through his tears. He opened his arms. Amarachi didn't hesitate. She rushed into them and hugged him tightly. "It's okay, Daddy," she whispered. "We'll be okay." He nodded, holding her close. "Yes, we will. I have you, and you have me. That's all we need." In the weeks that followed, Mr. Timothy moved swiftly to rebuild a stable life for Amarachi and himself. He officially filed for divorce from Deborah and also sought full custody of Amarachi, which was given since he was her biological parent and Deborah had no legal claim for her anymore. But he wanted to ensure Deborah could never interfere with Amarachi's life ever again. Deborah faced legal charges for child abuse. In the end, partly due to Mr. Timothy's own desire not to prolong the case, she was sentenced to a few years of probation and community service and mandated counseling rather than a long-term jail. Mr. Timothy agreed this outcome as long as it was guaranteed that Deborah would stay far away from Amarachi. She returned to live in her hometown with her mother and first stayed with his grandmother as well for the time being. Mr. Timothy provided some financial support for Fred as he felt a moral responsibility, but he made no further contact with Deborah. Meanwhile, true to his word, Mr. Timothy arranged to transfer his job position back to Lagos. Fortunately, his company understood the situation when he explained that he had urgent family matters and needed a permanent posting in Lagos. They granted his request, allowing him to work from the Lagos office. This meant he would no longer be traveling away and could be home every day to care for Amarachi. The first thing he did after settling the work situation was focus on Amarachi's well-being. He took her to a doctor for a full checkup. She was underweight and had some untreated ailments, like an old sprain that hadn't healed properly because she never got proper rest. But with medication, good food, and care, the doctor said she would recover fully and grow healthier. Mr. Timothy made sure Amarachi ate well. He cooked her favorite foods or took her out to nice restaurants on weekends, making it a special father-daughter treat. With each meal, Amarachi felt her strength returning. She even started to regain a healthy weight. Her cheeks became rounder and her eyes brighter. Next, Mr. Timothy addressed Amarachi's education. She had missed out on a couple of years of schooling. He went to her old school to explain and apologize for the unexplained withdrawal. Considering the circumstances, the school was sympathetic. Amarachi was given an assessment test and it was decided she could rejoin classes, though she was a bit behind. To help her catch up, Mr. Timothy hired a private tutor for evenings and weekends. Amarachi was nervous about returning to school, fearing other kids might tease her for being older in a lower grade or ask uncomfortable questions about her absence. But to her pleasant surprise, her old friends were mostly just happy to see her again. Some had heard she was ill or caught out of town. Various rumors had floated around when she disappeared from school. Amarachi didn't share too many details. She just said she had a tough time, but things were better now. With her father's loving support, she dove back into learning. She particularly loved reading and science, and she found joy again in being in a classroom instead of scrubbing floors at home. At home, the bungalow felt different, but in a good way. Now it was just Amarachi and her father, and they slowly redecorated to wash away the bad memories. They repainted Amarachi's room in a soft lavender color, her favorite. Mr. Timothy bought a new bed and they filled the room with things Amarachi loved: storybooks, a globe, and some art supplies since she discovered she liked drawing. They even put up a framed photograph of Amarachi's late mother on the desk as a way to honor her memory in the household again. For a long time, that photo had been hidden away by Deborah, but now it stood proudly. Amarachi talked more about her mother with her dad, and those conversations, though bittersweet, helped heal the old wounds. Father and daughter also spent a lot of quality and bonding time. Mr. Timothy realized he had missed out on so much of Amarachi's life, and he was determined to make up for it. On Saturdays, they would go to the park or the beach at Lakey. Amarachi would laugh as the ocean water tickled her feet, or as she and her father built sand castles. They would share ice cream and go window shopping at the mall, just enjoying each other's company. Sometimes Mr. Timothy would drive her through the busy streets of Lagos and show her places he used to go when he was young, telling her stories and cracking jokes to make her laugh. Amarachi's sad, guarded demeanor began to melt away. She became more open and cheerful, the young, carefree girl she deserved to be. Her laughter, which had been suppressed for years, rang through the house once more. One evening, after a particular happy day, they sat on the porch of their bungalow. The sun was setting, painting the Lagos sky with hues of orange and purple. Amarachi leaned on her father's shoulder. "Daddy," she said softly. "Yes, my dear," he replied gently, putting her hand. "I'm really happy," she said. "I never thought I could be this happy again." Mr. Timothy felt tears of joy prick his eyes. He wrapped an arm around her. "You deserve all the happiness in the world, Amarachi. I'm just so sorry it took me so long to see what was happening. I will never forgive myself for that." Amarachi sat up and looked at him with earnest eyes. "I forgive you, Daddy," she said quietly. "I know you didn't know, and you came for me. That's what matters. We are together now." He smiled and kissed her forehead. "Thank you, my wise little girl," he said. "I've learned a lot from all this. I learned to never ignore signs of trouble and to always put family first." They sat for a while in peaceful silence, watching a few birds flutter across the sky heading to their nest. The estate was calm and safe, a far cry from the chaos that had occurred not long ago. Suddenly, Amarachi gave a small laugh. "Do you remember that teddy bear Deborah gave me when I first met her?" he asked. Mr. Timothy nodded, a bit surprised by the question. "Yes, I think so. It was a long time ago. A white teddy bear, wasn't it?" Amarachi giggled. "Yes, I named it Snowy. She was so nice then. If I look at that teddy now, I wouldn't know it came from the same person." Mr. Timothy chuckled softly. "People can pretend very well, Amarachi. That's a lesson I've learned the hard way. But I think it's okay if you still like the teddy bear. The gift itself was given in kindness, even if the kindness didn't last." Amarachi nodded thoughtfully. "I still have it somewhere. I think I hid it when things got bad, because I didn't want her to take it away and say I didn't deserve it." "You can put it back on your bed now," Mr. Timothy said with a smile. "No one will take your things or hurt you ever again in this house." Amarachi felt a deep sense of contentment hearing those words. It felt good to have someone stand up for her, to protect her. "I love you, Daddy," she said suddenly, giving him a tight hug. "I love you too, Amarachi," he replied, hugging her back warmly. Their story had been a sad one, but it ended on a note of hope and resilience. Amarachi had faced cruelty and hardship, but in the end, the truth came out and justice was served. She regained her loving father and a chance at a normal, happy life. The ordeal taught them many lessons. Parents should always listen to and watch over their children carefully, even when they trust others to care for them. Love and responsibility go hand in hand. Cruelty and lies may go on for a time, but they will eventually be exposed. Deborah's deception and wickedness were revealed, and she faced the consequences of her actions. Children who endure tough times can grow into strong, compassionate individuals. Despite suffering, Amarachi remained kind and hopeful. She even found the strength to forgive instead of letting hatred consume her. Jealousy and hatred can destroy a family, while love truth and forgiveness can heal. Mr. Timothy and Amarachi rebuilt their lives on trust and love, and their home became warm again. In the end, Amarachi and her father found happiness together. Their home in Lagos became a place of laughter and love once more, just as it had been when her mother was alive. Both father and daughter knew they would never take each other for granted. Thank you so much for watching this amazing story about Amarachi and Mr. Timothy on African Stories by V. If you liked it and felt inspired with their journey, please show your support by clicking the like button, sharing with your friends, and leaving a comment below. To see more interesting stories and learn about different cultures, subscribe to African Stories by V, and do not forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Your support means a lot and helps us bring more stories to you. Until we meet again, stay connected, stay inspired, and keep smiling.